Okay, let's move on to Iran. There's Iran over here. There's Israel somewhere down here. Okay. Until 1979, Iran was under the Shah. It was a relatively friendly country to Israel. Then in 1979, the Islamic Revolution of Ayatollah Khomeini took place. They overthrew the government of the Shah and established a radical Islamist regime, renaming it the Islamic Republic of Iran. And all kinds of troubles have come since then. Became the most hostile country to Israel. You could say now it's the head of the snake, supplying Israel's enemies with weapons. If you notice, it's nowhere near Israel. It's got no border with Israel. Tehran's actually about 1,000 miles from Jerusalem. Iranians speak Farsi, not Arabic. They have quite a different culture from the Arabs. So what business is theirs to meddle in the affairs of the Arab world? Actually, none at all. They should let the Israelis and the Arabs get on with it. But because of an ideological reason, because they believe that out of the revolution is going to come someone they call the Mahdi, or Mahdi, who is an Islamic ruler who's going to come and lead the Muslims in a jihad against Jerusalem and against Israel, overthrow Israel, establish Islamic rule in the Temple of Jerusalem, and from there take over the whole world for Islam. That's the program. And that's why they're so against Israel. They're waiting for the Mahdi to come. So it's basically a religious war which they want to take against Israel. And all these other guys who are joining with them have a similar kind of idea. They're fighting for Islamic dimensions and for the destruction of Israel by Islamic forces, part of their program, even for the end of days. Now, Iran, too, is actually held back by its domestic situation, which is not good. Its regime is unpopular, particularly hated by the youth. Its defense system is not good. In fact, they're trying to get help from Russia. Just recently, the Russian Secretary of State, a man called Shoigu, went to Tehran to arrange help for Iran's defense systems. And you've actually got to see a growing collaboration between Iran and Russia, which is interesting in the light of the Gog and Magog prophecy. Shoigu promised to help Iran's defense systems, which they need, because in April, when Iran launched the missiles against Israel, you may remember that Israel struck back against Tehran. It just hit one place, which was Isfahan, and they penetrated the Iranian defenses and hit the most sensitive area they could have done in Isfahan, around the nuclear site at Isfahan. They're actually sending a message to Iran: we can get to you anywhere you want, so don't mess with us. And again, there is this very strong deterrent thing which is coming from Israel, because they've got vastly superior technology, and they're sending a message to Iran not to hit us, because if you do, we will hit you back much stronger. Another interesting little piece of snippet of information. This is a digital clock which the Iranians put up in what they call Tehran's Palestine Square. You can't perhaps see the clock very well. You can see the Israeli flag there, which they're burning. This actually is a sort of picture of some Islamic sort of fighters and Tehran and whatever. The clock's somewhere up there. This clock actually is counting down the time to Israel's destruction. Followed by Ayatollah Khomeini in 2015, who made a prophecy that in another 25 years, in other words, by the year 2040, Israel would no longer exist. So they put up this clock, which has a countdown to 2040, which is when they say that Israel will no longer exist. A journalist sent out a message saying that at the present time, the clock is blank, just got a blank screen because the electricity is off in Tehran. And it's all gone dark. And it's kind of significant as well, because not just this clock has been affected, but there's a whole problem with the infrastructure, with electricity in Iran and particularly in Tehran. Traffic lights, public transportation, everything's gone dark for hours at a time. And businesses aren't able to cope, and the entire country is suffering under crippling power shortages. So again, they're kind of not very strong position. And the mullahs are actually afraid, because if Israel did hit back at them, they could totally devastate parts of their infrastructure, which could then lead the people to rebel against them. And the regime itself is, as I said, extremely unpopular. The average Iranian is furious that the mullahs spend billions of dollars giving weapons of destruction to people like Nasrallah in Lebanon and the Hamas. What are you doing this? We don't care about this crisis, nothing to do with us. Why don't you spend the money on building up Iran's infrastructure and making this a decent place to live in? Which if they did, they could make Iran a very wealthy country, which would be a nice place to live in. As it is, they spend all their money on destruction, which is part of the Muslim problem, isn't it? I was thinking, what do these people actually produce that is of any use to the human race? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. What do they produce? They produce weapons, they produce hatred, they produce destruction. And basically, God is not too pleased with them, to put it mildly.